Buzz's Retirement Garage. Gotta do something a little different today. We're gonna read a story, a Christmas story. It was written by Dick Feagler, who used to work for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and he passed away about 6 years ago, I believe. He wrote this story in 1993. It was so popular that it was put on the front page of the Cleveland Plain Dealer in 1995. So I thought I would read it to you. Here's Mr. Feagler. And I'd like to read this to you because, like I said, I've read it almost every year. I really like it. It's a nostalgic Christmas type story, and I think you'll like it too. So sit down for a minute, listen carefully, and let's move on. On Christmas night when I was a kid, we all went over to my Aunt Ida's house, an old house in the old neighborhood. Now, just what do you think I was going to do today? Talk about some more about Art, or Newt, or Hillary, or the latest example of how the people we pay to govern us are unable to govern themselves. Not on Christmas, my friend. Let us rest our weary brains. Let us consider matters more lasting than the day's headlines. Let us turn our back on earthbound politics and dog-pound grief and trouble and troubling youth and those made famous for their infamy. Let us visit some people whose names only get into the newspaper when they die. And even then, just in the tiny type of the death notices. Let's go to my Aunt Ida's house. Come on. It'll only take a couple of minutes. You'll be home in time for the 11 o'clock news. I promise you. The house wasn't far from the steel mills, and the fallout from the mills made the dirt in Aunt Ida's backyard black and rich. When the wind was strong, the air in the neighborhood smelled like a chemistry lab. Breathing it might have been bad, but nobody knew that back then. My Aunt Ida had great luck with flowers. On Christmas night, we'd all be there. The old folks, the young folks, and the kids. The young folks were the men just back from the war and their wives. The old folks could remember World War I. The kids, like me, weren't old enough to remember much. We were busy collecting memories, and this is one of them. There was no TV. The only one amongst us who had a TV was my cousin Stanley, who sold them. He hadn't sold one to any of the rest of the family, but he keeps trying. He knows it's only a matter of time. After all, what isn't? I have a 10-inch screen, he says, a cigar in the corner of his mouth, a big brown beer bottle at his elbow. He's sitting at the dining room table with the rest of us young men playing pinochle. They have all, just for a minute, assumed the present tense, a Christmas present tense. They are never going to be able to make a screen bigger than 10 inches that will give you a decent picture, Cousin Stanley says importantly. According to the laws of electronics, 10 inches is as big as you can go. The Army Air Corps gave Cousin Stanley a job fixing radios. That's where he got his electronic knowledge. So my Uncle Ziggy, who flushed out snipers on Okinawa, and my cousin Melvin, who knocked out tanks in Italy, are listening to him with respect. Stanley, the trumpeter of the dawn of the age of television. By now, the tiny type had recorded Stanley's name, and Ziggy's, Melvin's too, and my Aunt Ida's. Time killed them. The tanks couldn't do it, and the snipers couldn't, but time, it does it every time. Time is an eraser, but it does not erase cleanly. And if you look hard enough, you can still see traces of them all. And if you look even harder, why, they're all right here. But where are the women? They're all in the living room talking about babies and recipes and operations, nylons that have come back again, so you can throw the leg makeup away, electric stoves that practically cook your meal for you, jobs they can quit now, are expected to quit now because the men have come back from war. It is talk to make a feminist despair. They talk of female trouble in permanent waves, and the Christmas crowds at Hallie's and Taylor's and Bailey's, and the big sterling linder tree that looks a little bigger this year, and the bake shop cookies, and trolley cars that turn on public square, showering the safety zones with sparks. Jay Leno isn't here. I told you, there's no television set except for the one Stanley is describing, sketching it in the air with his cigar. Nobody has bothered to turn the radio on. There's just talk, endless, trivial, sometimes mysterious. Sometimes, if a kid comes in the room, the talk suddenly stops. Ixnay, one of the ants will say. There are things in this time that a kid is not supposed to hear about. If for some unfathomable reason anybody said the word condom, it would take the room an hour to recover its equilibrium. Where are the kids? Would you mind, my friend, if I went in search of myself? It won't take long. I know just where to look. I'm with my cousins in the unheated bedroom at the back of the old house. We're burrowing under the piles of coats that have been dumped on the bed. Moutons, mostly, with a few Persian lambs, for animals do not yet have rights. Just a glimpse of myself is all I want. I don't want to look too hard, for this trip is a wistful mirror. The door opens and Aunt Ida is standing in a rectangle of light. You kids go in the living room now, she says. Santa Claus is coming soon. We go, and as soon as we leave, Aunt Ida opens a bureau drawer and reaches under some flannel sheets and pulls out a moth-eaten Santa Claus suit and scraggly beard. The pants of the suit have long since disintegrated, so my Aunt Ida hikes her dress up and pulls on a pair of my Uncle Billy's blue sergy pants. Over these, she tugs on some galoshes. She takes a pillow from the bed and yanks off the pillowcase. She stuffs the pillow under the Santa jacket for a tummy. She fills the pillowcase with toys from Woolworth's, Kresge's, and Grant's. She puts on the beard, the cap. She tiptoes out into the hall, out the back door into the night. Air so cold it makes her nose sting. Sky lit with the faint glow from the steel mills. Around the house she goes, and up on the side porch. She pauses and looks in the window. She sees what we see now. Me at 7. My young, handsome father and pretty mother. The old folks, the young folks, and the kids. Moving, although they can't feel the current, down the river of time. They don't see her. She is on the other side of the dark window pane. The adults know she's out there. We kids aren't sure. It's a moment of great suspense for us. We're not old enough yet to understand that life is fairly predictable, that you can usually tell what happens next, that there's only a handful of plots endlessly repeated. I promised I'd get back to you, but let me take one last look into the room. Most of the people you see there are gone now, but they haven't gone far, and on Christmas they're very close. They're just on the other side of the window pane. We can't see out through the window pane, but we know they must be there. Those simple people who loved us and took care of us. They left us blessings we rarely count. And if we let them, they come back at Christmas with gifts of everlasting life. I thought it was a great story. Bus's Retirement Garage.